Dear friends, today we are going to discuss once again Baba Sahab Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's writing and thoughts. Today our discussion is Dr. Ambedkar's 1930s speech in Nagpur. The Simon Commission report was out and the round table conference was being called by the British Raj to decide upon the constitutional arrangement in India, and the nationalist leaders were boycotting the Simon Commission's report. Earlier they were demanding dominion status, but with the civil disobedience movement, the nationalist leadership took a agitational turn, and the middle class youth organized hartals and protests in various parts of the country, and they were demanding complete independence. It was a very critical time for Dalits, for the depressed classes and for other minorities. The major concern was what should be their positions vis-a-vis dominion status, independence, and if there is any constitution making process which is going to take place, what are the interests of the depressed classes and what kinds of safeguards they should advocate, they should demand, so that their interests, their rights are not ignored. Against that background, Dalit leaders across the country gathered in Nagpur on August 8th, 1930 under the banner of the All India Depressed Classes Congress. Ambedkar presided over the conference and he gave a very important speech which is still relevant almost 100 years after the event, because it has touched the issue of social justice, the representations of minorities, the questions of independence, the questions of political freedom, and the need to go for social reforms. Interestingly, Ambedkar has also touched upon the competing claims of different minorities, Dalits, Muslims and others, and he has given his own formula that how among the minority groups policy should be made, and I think Ambedkar's insight is still relevant in contemporary India. So let me begin discussing Dr. Ambedkar's ideas. Friends, this speech which Dr. Ambedkar gave on August 8, 1930 is a long speech. So I would request you to read that speech on your own. It is easily available. Go and open Dr. Ambedkar's volume number 17, 17, part number 3. So, Dr. Ambedkar, in his speech delivered at Nagpur on August 8, 1930, during the All India Depressed Classes Congress, he was the president of the conference. He took up the questions of the allegations, the charges against the nationalist movement, that India is not a nation. There are different sects, castes, races, religious groups, they fight with each other. So, any claim of India being a nation is not right, and if India is not a nation, then the argument for Swaraj or argument for freedom or for self-rule is somehow dismissed. So, this is the allegations against the nationalist movement, and Dr. Ambedkar began his speech by touching these issues, and he had said that given the fact that India is a place where multiple races and multiple castes and religious groups and sects they live, and sometimes their interests are in conflict with each other, but Ambedkar has criticized the colonial understanding that the diversity or the internal conflict within the Indian society cannot be a claim for denying self-rule or Swaraj for the Indians. And he gave the example of many European countries, and he has said very clearly that the diversity, the social conflicts are there. It's nothing new. Only diversity and social conflicts are not only present in India, it is elsewhere also, it is in Europe also. But he has also said that if self-rule is given, if people are given the opportunity to rule themselves, to manage their own affair, then through that process what will happen? That a nation will emerge. So, Dr. Ambedkar has criticized the colonial understanding that you cannot deny Indians Swaraj or dominion status on the ground that there is a conflict, there is diversity, there is absence of any nation. Ambedkar has said, give us the right to manage our own affair, give us the right and opportunity to make our own laws, to manage our own affairs. Dr. Ambedkar has said, it seems to me to insist that divergent elements in a country shall be one united whole before it can have the blessing of the self-government is sometimes to reverse the order of things and to ignore the unifying effects of the great process of self-government. So, Ambedkar is basically saying that the unifying effect is there in the process of self-rule. So, here Ambedkar has defended the cause of self-rule, and those who argue that Ambedkar was against Indian independence, Ambedkar was against political freedom, he was loyal to the British Raj, is not correct. In fact, Ambedkar has indirectly supporting the nationalist argument that diversity is a reality, but that cannot be an excuse to deny Indians self-rule. In fact, the process of self-rule can bring people together. But Ambedkar has also raised a point. If Indians were given some sort of dominion status, if Indian is given right to govern their own matter, then what kinds of safeguards the depressed classes, the minority is going to get? So Ambedkar has clearly defended the nationalist claim to get power. At the same time, he is also posing a questions to nationalists that if independence or if dominion status or if self-rule or if Swaraj has come to Indians, then what kind of safeguards Dalits, depressed classes and other minorities are going to get? That why such safeguards are needed? Because Indian society is based on caste. There is a social determinism of caste where the leaders always prefer, while making policies, their own interest, their caste interest and their class interest. Due to caste, there is no sense of fraternity. And here Ambedkar has used the logic of nationalist to champion the cause of the downtrodden and the marginalized. He will say what? The nationalist has always argued that the Britishers have no right to rule over India. The nationalists have argued that power should be given to Indians. The nationalists have argued in different languages that the Indians should take control of their own affairs. Gandhiji has said that we need self-rule, we need Swaraj, because somebody who is outsider, somebody who is foreign, somebody who is alien have no justification to rule over us on the ground that the foreign power, the outsiders are providing good governance. Gandhi has said very clearly that Britishers claiming to give good governance is worse than Indian managing their own affairs, which is close to an anarchic system. So here Gandhiji is talking about autonomy, independence. What Ambedkar has said, that if one nation is not justified to rule over another nation, then the same logic should also be applied within the nation, that one class is not justified to rule over another class. The dominant caste are not allowed, not justified to suppress and grab the rights or deprive the rights of the lower caste. So Dr. Ambedkar is not arguing something very different. He is using the same nationalist language to bat for, to defend the rights of the lower caste, the depressed classes, the minorities. That okay, I accept your view that no nation has right to rule over another nation. No country has right to rule over another country. But how it could be true that one caste has right to rule over another caste? How could this process be justified that a few upper caste groups can take all the resources of the society? And Ambedkar has said it very clearly that if a dominant caste is given all the power, is given all the freedom, is given all the authority to decide and frame the policies for everybody, then the interest of lower caste, the minorities, will never be protected. This is the basis of social justice. This is the basis of reservation policy. This is the basis of affirmative actions, that human beings, when they make their policies, their thoughts, their decisions are very much determined by the society in which that person has been brought up, the caste in which that person was born. So the better way would be that the different interests of the societies should be given adequate, effective representation, so that they could formulate policies, they could make policies for the interest of their own classes. Ambedkar has said elsewhere that good laws, good constitutions are not guarantee that social justice would be given to the marginalized community. He said very clearly that lower caste, marginalized communities, depressed castes, minorities, they have to be in the position to implement laws. They should be in a position to make laws without which nobody will take care of their interest. For example, there are constitutional bodies, there are international bodies, there are human rights groups, there are courts. So Ambedkar is not saying that the utilities of those organizations is zero. What Ambedkar is trying to say, that without the provision of remedy, there is no meaning of any rights. I will give you one example. If a leader makes promises that reservations will be given to marginalized community, but if there is no provision in the law that if reservation is not implemented, then action will be taken against erring persons. If reservation is not given to the deserving candidate can seek justice. There should be a mechanism to ensure that the marginalized community are able to get their rights. So remedy is very important in Ambedkar's understanding. Without remedy, declaration of rights has little meaning. So Ambedkar is saying that the best way to ensure that your rights are maintained, your rights are ensured, you get your rights by taking control of your own affairs. What is this? That don't rely on others, on other institutions, that they would come and they would give you rights. It is better that you participate in law making, in bureaucratic affairs, and you yourself take control of your interest. So Ambedkar is arguing that the interest of the Dalits will be protected by Dalits only. He has said at multiple places that no other class can claim to fulfill the interest of the Dalit. Dr. Ambedkar has also said that to ensure that the Dalits and the minorities community, it is important that there should be given adequate representation. But is adequate representation good enough? Ambedkar has supported the idea of adequate representation, but at the same time he has said that adequate representation is not necessary proportionate representation. What is it? Let me give you an example. Suppose if there is a house and the house has 100 members, and let us say a minority group has only 5% population in that estate. So if adequate representation is translated into proportionate representation, which is even denied in current situation. No political party is giving adequate representation to religious minority. But even if proportionate representation is given to a marginalized group, where the total number of seats are 100 and the population of that minority group is that's 5%, then the minority group will only get 5 seats in the house. Tell me, a house which has 100 members, where the majority number is, the magic figure is 51, how could a religious community, a minority community with 5 members will be able to stop the laws which are against the interest of that community, or maybe against the society and the nation? So Ambedkar has said that do not literally translate adequate representation into proportionate representation. That doesn't mean that proportionate representation is useless. He is saying that we need to go beyond proportionate representation, and Ambedkar is here talking about weightage. What is this weightage? It is some kind of veto power. It is some kind of security given to religious community and minorities that irrespective of your number, your numerical strength, your rights will be protected. You will not face the brute assault of majoritarianism. And Ambedkar has said this point several times, that in a liberal democracy, in a democratic setup, the government is often formed through majority support, through majority seats, but that doesn't mean that that majority is sacrosanct. You win the election and after that you ask everybody to keep mum for 5 years. Ambedkar has said that majority rule is not sacrosanct. Do not consider it holy. What Ambedkar, by criticizing the majority rule, is saying that representation proportionate is needed, but apart from that, what is needed is some kind of weightage, some kind of security, some kind of constitutional mechanism, some kind of remedy, so that the interests of the minorities and marginalized communities are protected. Ambedkar, in his States and Minorities, written at the time of India getting independence, has clearly said that minorities need both proportionate and effective representation. Effective is the same, which is weightage, which Ambedkar is talking about here, or you could say veto power, you could say some kind of security, some kind of trust that you will not breach the interests of the minority. But what is happening in today's democracy? Minority voices are often unheard, ignored and dismissed. This is not the sign of healthy democracy, because in Ambedkar's understanding, the protection and safeguards of the rights of the minorities is key to success of any democracy. And here and elsewhere, Ambedkar doesn't mean minority to be only the religious community. He has also included Dalits and Adivasi along with the religious group, the numerically a small religious group, in the larger framework of the minorities. So Ambedkar is talking about representation, Ambedkar is talking about safeguards, Ambedkar is talking about adequate representation, and that adequate representation means proportionate representation plus weightage. Now the question is that among minorities there are several groups and they compete with each other. Sometimes they fight with each other, and the contradiction within the minorities group is utilized by the ruling classes to divide the unity of the oppressed. And here Ambedkar has given a very important formula how to address that issue. Ambedkar has said that preference, more power, more weightage should be given to those minority groups among minorities who are more discriminated, more deprived, more exploited, so that the weakest gets maximum protection. So let me quote Dr. Ambedkar here. While all minorities are agreed upon the necessity of weightage in the matter of their representation, there does not seem to be any agreement in the application of it. This is due, it seems to me, to a want of clear understanding regarding the function that weightage is expected to perform. From what I have said above, it will be obvious to you that weightage is a scheme improvised for lengthening the arm of a minority which otherwise could be too short for its protection. The length to be added must therefore depend upon the shortness of the arm. If the arm is short, the length should be added must increase. If the arm is long, the length of the added will be curtailed. To put it differently, this weightage cannot be uniform for all the minorities, and that it must vary with their social standing to be high. If the standing of the minority is low, to be low. If the standing of the minority is high, unfortunately there is a tendency in certain minorities not to place themselves on a pedestal higher than the common level of the ordinary citizen, but also to monopolize a larger share of representation, not on the ground that their social standing is low, but because their social standing is high. So Ambedkar is basically trying to argue here that among the minorities there are competing claims that who should be given more protection, more weightage. So Ambedkar has given a formula that don't fight. The formula is very simple. If your standing, if your social standing is high, if your social standing is this much, you should be given this much protection. But if your social standing is little, low, then you should be given bigger protection. So protection weightage is determined by your social standing, whether you are high or whether you are low. If this formula is used, then what will happen, that the weakest, the most marginalized among the minorities group will be given preference. So Dr. Ambedkar's understanding is that when it comes to majority and minorities, he will give more attention to safeguarding the interest of minorities. That doesn't mean that he is against the interest of the overall good of the society, or he is against any particular community. And when it comes to the different interests within the minorities group, he will support more power, more protection, more weightage to those who is more deprived.